Thank you guys for joining us again for another episode of Imago Dei. We are here and we are blessed to have with us a familiar face on campus. Teagan Lennox is involved in many different things. You might recognize him as the Be the Bridge facilitator. He is also a senior RA at Bricks. And you are also a student athlete. So you wear many hats on campus, and you're also involved in many diversity events on campus. So thank you for just fitting us in your busy schedule. I can imagine. We're honored to have you here.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me here. Very excited to dive into this conversation. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we're going to be talking about how to be an ally and what that's like. And so my first question for you is, what does it mean to be an ally? And then to take that a step further, what does it mean to be a Christian ally?
Yeah, I think the first thing I think of with being an ally is that it's more than just getting along with people. It's joining each other like in a common goal, and also like supporting people. Even though you might be different, you might have different opinions, you need to like step into their space and like have that conversation to where it's not just getting along with each other, it's actually like supporting people. And then specifically with a Christian perspective, I think the first thing I think of is the Good Samaritan, which is from Luke 10. The story basically goes how there's a man who is on one side of this spectrum, and another man who's on the complete opposite end of another spectrum. And this one man is just kind of walking down the street one day, and he essentially gets beat up and left on the side of the road to die. And all these people that you would think would step into his corner and help him in that situation just keep walking. The people that you think that are like him just keep walking and leave him alone. But the man who is on this other end of the spectrum is the one who steps in and actually helps this man and brings him to a city and pays for his stay at an inn. Jesus basically was saying who was the man who, in this context, was the ally. And the other man that asked this question was, it's the man who showed mercy. And so then Jesus was like, go and do the same thing. So I think in the Christian perspective, it's more than just, helping each other out. It's like getting uncomfortable and stepping out of your comfort zone to a space that you're not used to going to, or like people might look at you and see you differently for stepping into that space.
That's just so inspiring to hear that story, and every time I hear it, I think about it's someone that you least expected. Like it wasn't. You have to remember that like we often think of ourselves as like that person sometimes, or you might think of yourself as oh, that doesn't really apply to me, or this doesn't really relate to me. But like you have to be that person sometimes. You have to think, okay, maybe this could be a situation where I step in and I do something. So that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And with that being said too, I just think that we also look at what does it look like to be an ally with everything that happened this summer. What does it look like to be an ally to Black people or minorities? And I just want to like flip that question too, because I think that it's very important to be an ally, being a person of color, being an ally to someone that's white. So what does that look like?
Yeah, the main thing would be just like still seeing us as human and not assuming something about the white population just because we're white. Because a lot of people don't know my background, where I came from, and it looks a lot different than the typical white family.
Sure does.
And so like I grew up in a situation where like I was immersed in diversity and community, and it was a beautiful way to grow up. But I don't want to be seen as somebody that can have these opinions on things and automatically assume that I am uninformed, or I've never like lived or seen that. And like as a white man, I'm very aware I am white. And there's a lot of things that I am privileged to do that you may not be able to, which is heartbreaking to me. But at the same time, if someone views me as the enemy or the opposite end of the spectrum just because of how I look or something I might say that's without any context sounds on one end of the spectrum, I think it's important to come to that common ground and actually get to know the person.
Yeah, and when you think about it too, it's like, what better are we as minorities to automatically assume something about another race, and we get mad when that happens, vice versa. So you just have to get to know people. You can't just look at someone and think, or base someone's beliefs or who they actually are off of the color of their skin or where they happen to be at, where they come from.
Right.
God forbid who they vote for, but you know how it goes these days. But I just think that you got to look past those things that people tend to assume about people and just try to get to know someone. And
right.
like you said, getting down in the trenches and just talking to them and being like, hey, this is totally uncomfortable for me, but I would like to hear your side of it too. When you look at issues like of this magnitude, race, and how people are feeling, you have to also get to know your white brothers and sisters, because if you don't, then you're no better than those who are racist or those who are prejudiced in the same way, because what better are you? You know, what difference are you making? I just think that that's important, and I think that you have to be seen as a human being just like you see us as a human being. So yeah.
Absolutely.
That's so exciting. So as we continue this conversation, and you talked about the fact that you're very aware that you're white, and so what does that mean? Or what does it mean today to be white in society?
I think looking back, especially in America right now, that's kind of the only opinion I can have, because that's where I grew up, that's where I came from. I'm from here. And I look at the way America is set up and how, even from the beginning, it was geared for white people to where we can succeed, we can kind of have a step up. And so I feel like in society, even if like legislatively on paper we're equal, we still started like with a big head start. So I'm on the track team here, and like it's, to put it in like a running term, we had a head start to where like even if we're moving at the same pace, we're still ahead. Racism is still very much a thing. It just might be on a different level or of understanding, or a different way of saying things or acting. But ultimately it's still there, and as a white person, like it's our job to not just have the head start, but to actually like get on the same level and support people of color.
Absolutely. That was, I'm just thinking about last episode, just talking about white guilt in general, and just like sometimes you don't know the weight of that as minorities. We don't know the weight of white guilt, or we don't know what that even feels like, because we're in a different position. So I think that that's really important to just flip it and think that some people might just be scared. They might not be comfortable having a conversation like that. Like in last episode, God made diversity. And I think that when you look at that, we need to respect that and be just honored that we are given the chance to be made in his likeness, and just know that if he made us like him, he's gonna be looking a little different when we get up there. Like, he's not gonna look exactly like me or exactly like you. He's going to be, it's just gonna be beautiful. It's gonna be breathtaking, and words won't be able to describe. So I think that when you look at it from a Christian point of view too, this goal that we're all chasing, we want to make it to heaven, we want to, be Christians and model that on this campus. I just think that it's also to take a step back and think about the fact that we can promote diversity and we can be just proud of it.
Yeah, I love that you said that too, because it kind of reminded me of how I grew up, and just in an area that was like super diverse in my community. Like you look around and you see people of all different backgrounds, all different ethnic cultures, economic stances, political stances, and we're all just worshiping God. I love how you guys call this Imago Dei, because it's like the image of God. Being a Christian, or like seeing the image of God, is not just about being Christ to people, but it's about seeing Christ in people. It's not just about living life and loving on people, but it's about seeing like Jesus in other people too, even if they have different beliefs than you, or even our enemies, quote unquote. Still seeing Jesus in people. That's a part of Imago Dei, like the image of God.
Very true. So as we have these uncomfortable conversations as an ally, what does it look like having these conversations with family and friends?
Yeah.
Because they will be uncomfortable, and they are racial issues that we may not normally talk about. So what does that look like?
Yeah, I think with family and friends, it's almost harder to have these conversations because you grew up with them. And at the end of the day, you quite literally have to live with the uncomfortableness. You're literally living with them and living life with them. But I think it's so important to have these conversations and maybe, first of all, address like, hey, I might be wrong in some of these issues, and you might be right in a lot of other issues. Being able to kind of break down those walls of uncomfort and like sit through that and quite literally live through that with them is a huge step in that process of finding that common ground and like coming to an understanding as a family or as a friend group.
Some people's grandparents know what it was like to be segregated, or great grandparents. So I think that with that weight that you feel like at a family gathering, bringing home someone that doesn't look like the rest of the family, I can't imagine that, but also just having different viewpoints. And I think that boldness is just one of the biggest things you need. And I think you need just a heart of understanding too, like an open heart, because you have to understand that they might reject you.
Yeah.
There might just be some consequences that you didn't foresee in having that conversation, but it's like, what are you willing to risk? Like, are you willing to say that you attempted to make a change in your own family, or that you just, saw the problem, saw how they were acting or what was going on and just ignored it?
But that's how it's uncomfortable, and that is where we grow. We grow in being uncomfortable and finding those spaces where it may not always be easy, but like you said, being bold and stepping out, that makes a difference.
Yeah,
absolutely. You don't want to force diversity down anyone's throat, because then it's not genuine. And I would not want to look back on this one day and think that people got that from this. I just want people to understand that, it's important to push the conversation, but it's just what's comfortable for you, and get a little uncomfortable. But I just think that it's, within a healthy range of comfortability and uncomfortability. So.
Yeah, and even like going into those conversations, it's more than just like wanting to step into their space and inviting them into your space. But it's like still loving them and accepting them for who they are, even in that conversation and after that conversation. And that's a hard thing to do a lot of times, especially if you leave there having a different viewpoint. At the end of the day, like, still have those conversations.
Absolutely. And I think that it's maturity.
Yeah.
Like, you have to understand who you can have those conversations with. And that one crazy aunt that's just going to actually try to fight you, she's probably not the one to have the conversation.
Right. I think at Lee, we're blessed to be a part of the start of a change. I think we get to be a part of something that's is going to be a catalyst for so much more. But what I would really love to see is more diversity. I think it's one thing to have every group on campus, but it's another thing for it to actually work well and actually be diverse. I would love to see more people of color in leadership positions at Lee, but a lot of that is hard to do if people here don't feel comfortable stepping into those positions. And I think it's something that like Lee needs to strive towards, and I think Lee is striving towards, to make it a safe place and where people of color feel comfortable actually applying for these positions and getting into these positions. If I saw someone like me that was trying to recruit me to come here, I think that would entice me a lot more to want to go to this school where I know I'm going to be accepted. And so I think if people of color are in leadership and feel comfortable being in leadership, that's going to affect years to come, to where a lot of people will then feel comfortable coming to Lee.
Lee hopped on the train really quick and made a change,
Absolutely.
Shout out to the Office of Racial and Ethnic Relations. Like, literally none of this would be possible without them. So like, just things like that. Like, I'm honored to be at a campus where a change like that was made, and it was almost quick. It felt to me like it was quick. The summer was still going on. It was like June when it went down. I feel like our voices were heard, and I just would not like to stop there. I would love to just keep pushing and make this a place where it's just beautiful, and it's like so many colors, and you just see so many diversities, and we're just harmonizing as one.
I think we're getting to a point where we understand diversity, but we're now getting to a point where we understand unity and diversity.
Absolutely.
And that's the beautiful thing about now being on this campus and seeing like the progress that we've made.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Me too.
Honestly, Teagan, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time out of your day to come here and just talk with us and be a part of the conversation. And I just want to thank you personally for you just being a leader on campus and having a heart just to do things like this, and just to be bold and to be an example to all of us, to just that we can inspire change in many different ways and be involved in 100 things and still be able to be on time with it. Yes, I love it. But yes, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.